underneath that surface quiet, there's this incredible, unseen hum of intense activity going on. Today, you and I are diving into exactly that picture, the really intricate reality of a major military exercise, Zapad 2025, as it's happening, well, right now. Our focus for this deep dive is a week in progress brief we've got from Europe East today, and it's dated today, September 16th, 2025. This brief gives us a really fascinating snapshot, doesn't it? And it's from day 5 of the exercise, and it kind of lays bare this complex web of security stuff, economic effects, and even impacts on daily life right across the eastern flank. So our mission today is basically to peel back those layers, to go beyond just the headlines and really get a grip on what a huge event like Zapad 2025 actually means for you, for the region, for, well, everything. We're going to pull out those crucial insights, from the invisible battles happening in electronic warfare to how local economies are shifting, maybe even how it could mess with your travel plans. Think of it as a shortcut to seeing how all these seemingly separate details actually connect, building up that comprehensive picture of what it really means to be well-informed in this kind of dynamic environment.
It really is striking how the source kicks things off with that paradox. Calm air, busy nets. Sets the scene perfectly, I think, because on the surface, the airspace looks okay. We haven't seen any fresh allied airspace breaches overnight. That's definitely good news. But, and this is the key, this calm is really deceptive. Combat air patrols, CAC-APs, they're still heavily layered, right from the Baltics all the way down to the Black Sea. A constant watchful presence.
Okay, so it's not just the planes we might see. Beyond those KPs, what else tells us this is such a high readiness situation? What's going on in that calm air that's maybe less visible?
The brief mentions the Quick Reaction Alert QRA and the AWAC-ACS rotations, those big radar planes. They're holding steady, constant. And importantly, the rules of engagement, the ROE, they haven't changed.
Right.
Which means, no obvious aggression, but the underlying military stance is absolutely maximum readiness, maximum vigilance. And you're spot on. Beneath that calm, visible surface, the real battle, the invisible one, is being fought in those busy nets.
And that takes us right into the core of it, the busy nets. This is where it gets really, really interesting, isn't it? We're talking electronic warfare, EW drills, global navigation satellite system, GNSS spoofing, jamming,
right,
all that stuff. The source says the highest risk for this is like sunset to late evening, and operations are running in degraded mode standard operating procedures. Okay, what does that actually mean? For systems to be in degraded mode, like what's the practical effect?
Right. Degraded mode SOPs. It basically means systems are working, but they're not at full strength, not optimal. Think about maybe your phone's GPS suddenly going wonky or your internet connection getting really flaky and slow. In a military sense, it means key systems, navigation, targeting, communications are operating with less accuracy, maybe less reliability because of outside interference. Forces are actively practicing how to keep going when their usual tech advantages are compromised. They might have to fall back on other methods, maybe older, more analog ways of doing things.
Wow.
It really shows how sophisticated modern conflict is, The electromagnetic spectrum is basically a battleground now, just as real as land, sea, or air.
So, if that spectrum is the new battleground, how are governments adapting? What's the brief telling us about, concrete strategies to counter these invisible threats, especially with the drones and things like that becoming more common?
Yeah, it's clear they're not just waiting for things to happen. They're actively building up defenses. The brief really highlights the fast development of counter-UAS strategies. That's counter-unmanned aircraft systems. Capitals are apparently finalizing these early SAFE shortlists.
SAFE shortlists?
Yeah, SAFE. It stands for Sensing, Alerting, Fighting, and Enduring. So it's not just about buying kit.
Ah, okay. It's a whole system.
Exactly. It's a comprehensive plan, a proactive step to secure their defenses against this, evolving threat.
That makes sense. So it's more than just equipment, it's the whole strategy for resilience. What sort of things are they actually putting on these SAFE lists? What categories?
And the detail here is quite revealing. They're including specific things like sensors, obviously, to detect threats early, jammers to disrupt them electronically. Then you've got SHORAD systems, short-range air defense for, physically taking things down. And, crucially, repair spares.
Right, keeping things running.
Exactly. It shows they're planning for the long haul, for resilience in a contested environment, not just for a single quick fight. It's about sustainability.
Okay, so while all that's going on the visible patrols, the invisible electronic stuff, this exercise is also reaching into something maybe more personal for you listening, your wallet.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the economic ripples Zapad 2025 is creating, often in ways you might not immediately think of. Our brief points out how sensitive regional markets are. For example, Poland's core consumer price index CPI is due out today, 2 p.m. Central European time. Yeah, and that Polish CPI number, it's not just some dry statistic, it's kind of a geopolitical weather vane right now. That single figure today basically sets the tone for the National Bank of Poland's entire monetary policy path heading into the last quarter of the year.
Wow.
It really hammers home how direct the link is between geopolitical tension and national finances. Events like Zapad cast a, long shadow over market stability.
And it's not just Poland feeling it, right? We see it across other currencies in the region. The Polish zloty, the Hungarian forint, the Romanian leu, PLN, HUF, RNON. They're described as broadly range-bound, sort of stable for now. But the source says everyone's watching front-end yields very closely, especially with more EU economic data coming later this week. What exactly are front-end yields? Why the focus there?
Okay, so front-end yields, we're talking about short-term government bond yields. Think debt that matures relatively soon. They're a really sensitive indicator of immediate market confidence and how investors see risk, especially when fresh EU economic data lands. Any unexpected jump there, even a small one, can send shivers through the whole regional economy. If you link that back, it just shows how interconnected everything is. Even if currencies look stable on the surface, the underlying unease from Zapad plus the wider EU economic picture, it just creates this constant low-level anxiety in the financial markets.
And for you listening, these kind of distant market moves can actually hit your everyday costs. The brief specifically mentions diesel premia, basically, an extra cost on fuel or sticking around on frontier routes. Those are the key border routes near the exercise zone. And on top of that, insurers are keeping small Zapad surcharges in place. That's like an unseen cost increase passed to consumers because of the perceived higher risk.
Exactly.
So even if you're nowhere near the military action, the cost of getting goods delivered, maybe even your car insurance premium, could edge up slightly. It's like an invisible tax almost.
That's a really good way to put it. It's a perfect illustration of how these big exercises filter down into daily life, often in ways you don't immediately connect. The market prices and the risk, and ultimately that gets passed along. Even small surcharges add up, affecting everything from grocery prices to business transport costs. Shows the wide economic footprint.
Speaking of transport, let's talk mobility and communication on the eastern flank. If you're trying to move goods, or maybe just travel yourself, this exercise is having a very real effect. The brief notes Belarus crossings are seeing timed checks, sometimes even closures.
And that directly leads to pretty significant delays. We're talking an extra 60 to 120 minutes added to road travel times, the ETAs.
Oof.
Yeah, it's not just annoying. For logistics firms, that can mean blown deadlines, higher fuel bills, real supply chain headaches. But what's interesting is how things adapt. The brief notes that rail and intermodal transport, using multiple types like truck and train, are kicking up the slack. People are finding workarounds.
Okay, so businesses and people are adapting, finding other ways. What about further south, Ukraine, and air travel? The source says Ukraine corridors are stable, though there are periodic inspections, and humanitarian aid lanes get priority, which is good to hear. Airport operations are normal, but, and this seems important, there are notice to airmen, or NOTAM, playbooks ready to go if the strike tempo spikes. What exactly qualifies as a spike in strike tempo, and how fast would those NOTAMs kick in? Seems a bit vague.
That's a really sharp point, isn't it? The very ambiguity of spike tempo creates its own kind of underlying tension. It implies there's some threshold, some predefined point beyond which a rapid, pre-planned response gets triggered instantly.
Right.
It just highlights the huge amount of contingency planning that's always going on behind the scenes. Even when things look normal, the systems for a rapid response are basically primed and waiting. It speaks to a very, very high level of vigilance.
It also leads us into how information is managed, doesn't it? The brief mentions this low-grade chatter about NATO escalation keeps bubbling up. That can be confusing, maybe even worrying for people. But at the same time, local municipalities are focusing on really clear single-message alerts. This seems like the area where you, the listener, really need to be careful about what you're hearing.
Absolutely. That NATO escalation talk, whether it's deliberate disinformation or just, rumor, it can easily crank up anxiety and confusion. So the local strategy, clear, simple messages, is a direct countermeasure. It's designed to manage how people perceive things, try and head off panic. It's actually a very responsible way to communicate when things are uncertain. And our SCAE framework, that quick insight map from the source, it really nails this with the stakeholders point.
Oh, yeah. I like how SCLE breaks down the different angles. So, connecting to stakeholders, the brief says residents just want simple alerts. Logistics companies need reliable travel times, predictable ETAs, mayors need to control rumors, and small businesses, SMEs, they're watching fuel and insurance costs.
It just paints such a clear picture of how wide-ranging and diverse the impact really is. Each group has very specific concrete needs that get directly hit by the exercise. It's not one single problem. It's like a whole set of linked challenges, and each needs its own kind of response and understanding.
Okay, so beyond those immediate impacts on, getting around or getting information, our source also gives us the strategic lens, the SEALE framework, to see the bigger picture. And one really key insight is what it calls the constraint flip. The idea that fewer, clearer notifications are better than many nudges clarity lowers panic. That seems like a crucial communication tactic in times like these, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. When people are stressed or unsure, just bombarding them with minor updates or vague hints, the nudges, it can actually make things worse, increase anxiety, erode trust. A single, clear, authoritative message is way more effective for keeping people calm and maintaining trust. It's really about quality over quantity and how you share information, especially when the stakes are high. A big lesson in crisis comms, really.
And there's also an analogy in the brief for how to operate in this environment. Treat the flank like winter ops, slow, layered, disciplined. What does that mean practically? For the military side, but maybe for civilian readiness too?
It's such a good analogy because it speaks to endurance, being careful, doing things methodically. Think about actual winter operations in the military, right?
Mhm.
Everything takes longer. You need more planning. Mistakes cost you more.
Right.
So applying that here means adopting a similar mindset, being patient, building up defenses and layers, not just physical ones, but digital too, and sticking rigidly to the procedures you've set out. It suggests a long game approach, not a quick fix, for both military posture and how civilians need to be resilient. Steady, deliberate action, not knee-jerk reactions.
That ties perfectly into the next SCALE point, the layers insight. From micro, like NOTAM timing, right up to macro alliance credibility. This really helps connect the dots, showing how tiny operational details add up to the big geopolitical picture.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How something seemingly procedural, like the exact timing of a NOTAM that notice to pilots about hazards, how that can ripple upwards and ultimately affect something huge, like the perceived credibility of NATO itself. Every single action, however small it seems, sends a message. And in this kind of tense environment, those messages get amplified. It really shows the pressure on commanders on the ground to get even the small stuff right, because it all feeds into that bigger picture of deterrence, reliability, trust.
And finally, the SCLE framework flags up some really high stakes edge cases. These aren't just abstract risks, they're specific critical scenarios like GNSS spoofing during a medevac flight, or false alarms about debris in remote areas. These are potentially life or death consequences we're talking about.
Yeah, those edge cases really hammer home the immense pressure and the responsibility involved in managing these exercises. Imagine a GNSS spoofing attack hitting a medical evacuation helicopter. That could be catastrophic, right? Directly impacting the ability to save a life by messing up navigation for critical transport.
Absolutely.
And false alarms, they might seem minor, but they can trigger unnecessary public fear and pull emergency services away from where they might actually be needed. It just highlights the incredible precision and caution that's needed in this complex, high-stakes game.
So looking ahead then, what should you be keeping an eye on over the next, say, 48, 72 hours? On the security side, our source suggests watching for repeat EW hotspots, places where electronic interference keeps popping up, or maybe border skirting drones, UAVs, especially around dusk during these Zapad nights, those sort of golden hours for electronic mischief.
And also watch the safe sequencing. Which capital cities actually publish their first shopping lists for those counter-UAS strategies? And what do they prioritize? Are they going heavy on sensors first? Or maybe SHORAD systems for interception? Or stocking up on munitions? That priority list will tell us a lot about what they see as the most immediate threat and their strategic thinking right now.
And on the economic side, keep watching that Polish core CPI reading and how the National Bank of Poland reacts. Any surprises there could definitely send ripples, not just through Poland, but regionally.
Absolutely. And watch closely for any spillover effects onto the Hungarian forint and Romanian leu front-end yields. Like we said, these economies are really linked, and shocks in one often echo through the others, especially when there's geopolitical tension in the air.
So, as our source wraps up, it leaves us with this really powerful closing thought. Today's win is boring on purpose. Layers up, buffers honest, comms tidy. It really drives home the point that effective preparation, successful risk management, well, it often looks incredibly uneventful, almost dull from the outside.
It's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? That the absence of drama is actually the victory here. It means all those complex systems, the communication plans, the defensive layers, they're working like they're supposed to. They're preventing things from escalating, keeping things stable. It's a quiet win, a testament to all the meticulous planning and hard work happening behind the scenes.
And that brings us right to our final thought for you to chew on. Quiet skies aren't luck, they're logistics. It really prompts you to think about the huge, unseen effort, the coordination, the technology, the people, the decisions that goes into maintaining stability and stopping things from spiraling during events like this. What systems, what people, what tough calls are working nonstop behind the curtain just to keep things boring, to make sure those skies stay quiet, and to navigate those incredibly busy nets you can't even see. Definitely something to ponder as you go about your day.